In collaboration with Kappa, AS Roma recently released a retro version of what was the Champions League campaign 2001 and 2002 kit. Despite selling out online fairly quickly, I managed to pick one of these up, and today's video will help you guys get a closer look. Now, the original is arguably one of the most iconic and sought after Roma kits, so much so that in my years of being a Roma fan, it might just be the kit that you see the most fakes for. It's just one of those shirts that, despite being worn during an underwhelming season where a star-studded Roma team underachieved in relation to their expectations, it still remained iconic for its beauty and the stars that wore it. Coming in at 80 euros, this retro version looks kind of similar to the original, so let's get into the details. So with it, you get this box and the tags attached to the neck of the shirt look as such. The fact that Kappa never put their logo on this specific jersey made it quite easy for Roma to get this version as close as possible to the real deal. Now, that's not something that can be said for the retro remake they did months ago for the home kit of the 2000-2001 season, where for that one, Kappa actually did have the logo on the original, and Roma, for obvious reason, could not just slap that on the retro remake. Back to the start of the show though, the main difference between this retro remake and the original from 20 years ago is that the yellowish orangish part of the jersey is actually a lot more orange on the originals. And like many of the fakes that circulate the internet, this retro remake has a much lighter, almost yellowish orange type of color. Although you might not be able to see how clear that color difference is on video, another thing that you won't be able to see is the material, which is slightly different as well. I would describe it as a touch lighter than the original. And when it comes to the badge, the retro version is stitched and has a pretty clean look, while at the time the store versions of these jerseys had badges that were a bit more rugged. They almost looked like they were just slapped on there. As for the Scudetto badge, which symbolizes Roma as the Serie A champions, it's also different to the original store version. Not only is the shape significantly different, maybe even a bit smaller, there's also a slight red border around the badge that I would say is trying to emulate what would have been a characteristic of an original match-worn jersey from the time. While this type of detailed discussion is a story for another video, for clarity, it's worth mentioning that at the time, all store jerseys had a stitched Scudetto badge, whereas the match-worn jerseys, or at least jerseys that came directly from the team kit supply, had a border around the Scudetto that made it look like it was almost sinking into the jerseys. Moving on to the sponsor, the Ina As Italia sponsor is almost identical in font and size, but the main difference is most obvious once you get your hands on it. If you ever do, you can clearly see that this retro version had the sponsor applied, maybe heat pressed to the jersey. The original Ina As Italia sponsor, on the other hand, was one with the jersey. It was literally part of the stitching. You could not take it off. Now, if you ever find someone selling one of these retro jerseys, everything discussed so far should help you in figuring out whether it's the official retro release or a standard knockoff. But to be sure, you'll also need to see the internal tags. At the bottom of the shirt, you should find a small dark green tag with the Roma badge and the words AS Roma official product underneath. And right behind this tag is a bigger white tag that tells us the jersey is 100% polyester, but also 100% football, whatever that means. Below, there's the washing instructions. It says that it's made in Europe, and there's the copafootball.com address. Nothing on the backside, which leaves us with the tag on the neck of the jersey. Once again, it's a dark green color telling us it's an official AS Roma product. The size is right underneath, and another reminder that it is made in Europe. In terms of sizing, similar to the original Kappa jerseys of the time, these shirts are designed to be a bit more tight-fitting than usual. For reference, when it comes to Nike match jerseys, aka Vapor Knits, I used to get myself an extra large. A large would fit too, but I prefer a bit of a baggier fit to be a bit more relaxed. At a double extra large, this jersey is tighter at the chest area compared to a Nike Vapor Knit extra large jersey, but in comparison, it's also a lot longer and gets wider as you go. I definitely could have gotten away with an XL, but it really comes down to personal preference. When it comes to how they made this shirt feel, I would definitely critique the fitting and the length of a double XL relative to the tightness at the chest, it feels a bit excessive. On top of that, I do think that while it's a good version for a retro remake, the yellowish orange doesn't hit the same as the original darker orange, and so at 80 euros it feels a bit steep, especially when even though the rest of the jersey is made quite well, the color difference has always been a big differentiator between original store versions and all the fake jerseys that circulate the internet. For me personally, the fact that this jersey's biggest plus side is that I can wear it without having to ruin my originals probably tells me that if I wasn't this obsessed, I probably wouldn't have bought it. Hopefully this was helpful though, and so if you're into kits, especially Roma and Italy, Forza Roma, and I'll see you next time.